The world's most elite special forces all trace their roots back to a single, almost reckless gamble in the North African desert. 6 officers and 60 men born from one paralyzed soldier's wild idea and a fake unit name designed to fool the Nazis. Yet for decades, the British government refused to admit any of it existed. How did a shadow operation that started with disaster become the blueprint for every modern commando unit? And why are its secrets still protected at all costs? The truth begins with a man on crutches and a war no one was prepared to fight. In July 1941, a British lieutenant lay in a Cairo hospital, paralyzed from the waist down after a botched parachute jump. David Stirling stood 6'5", a gambler by nature, a man who saw rules as suggestions. Staring at the ceiling, he mapped out a plan that broke every tradition the Army held sacred. Send small teams of volunteers behind enemy lines, let them operate without red tape, and target the heart of the enemy's war machine. The idea was as reckless as it was simple. Sabotage from the inside, not the front. Stirling's reputation for trouble preceded him, but so did his charm. Still on crutches, he flagged down a taxi to Middle East headquarters. Security stopped him at the gate, so he found a gap in the fence, hauled himself over, and limped straight into the office of Deputy Chief of Staff Neil Ritchie. No appointment, no introduction, just a battered officer with a wild proposal. Ritchie listened, intrigued by the audacity more than the details. Before the meeting ended, Stirling had his approval to raise a force of his own. The new unit was given a name taken from a deception playbook. L Detachment, Special Air Service Brigade. There was no brigade, and there was nothing special about the air service. The name was designed to convince German intelligence that an entire regiment of British paratroopers lurked in the desert. Stirling was authorized to recruit 6 officers and 60 men, an experiment in warfare that began with a lie and a leap of faith. Their training started at Kabrit Camp near the Nile, far from the eyes of the establishment and even farther from the rules that governed the rest of the British Army. 55 men boarded their planes in November 1941, parachutes strapped on, orders clear, land near the enemy's airfields and strike. The desert below was pitch black, and the wind howled at over 80 miles an hour. As they jumped, the storm scattered them for miles. Equipment vanished into sand, radios were lost, and by dawn the mission was over before it began. Out of 55, only 22 made it back. 33 were killed, wounded, or captured without ever reaching the target. The brass called it proof that Stirling's experiment was doomed, but Stirling refused to let failure be the last word. He abandoned parachutes and turned to the long-range desert group for help. Jeeps replaced parachute drops. The next raid struck Tamet Airfield. 6 men destroyed 24 enemy aircraft in a single night, and not one was lost. The Germans began to whisper about a phantom force, a unit that could appear out of nowhere, strike, and vanish before sunrise. Rommel's staff called Stirling the Phantom Major. The SAS became a rumor and a nightmare, their beards and Arab headgear making them look more like ghosts than soldiers. What started as a disaster became a doctrine. The lesson was clear. Small teams moving fast and thinking for themselves could do what whole battalions could not. The motto they chose, "Who dares wins," would echo across armies for generations. This was the moment the SAS stopped being an experiment and started becoming a legend. If you want to understand how Special Forces changed forever, hit subscribe, because this story is just getting started. In the Brecon Beacons, the hills are silent except for the steady crunch of boots and the rasp of breath. SAS selection begins with a test of pure will. A single candidate, alone with a map and compass, is sent across rain-soaked ridges and sodden valleys. There are no instructors barking orders, no encouragement, no feedback, just checkpoints marked on a grid, and the clock ticking down. Each man carries his own weight, both in gear and in doubt. The fan dance looms, 26 kilometers over Pen y Fan, up one side, down the other, and back again, the rucksack growing heavier with each phase. The numbers are merciless. Out of every group of 125 to 200 who start, only 10 to 25 will finish. Some years, not a single candidate passes. It is not just about physical strength. 90% will fail because the real test is inside your own head, moving forward when you are soaked, freezing, and utterly alone. The mountain does not care about reputation or rank. Here, the only thing that matters is whether you can keep going when no one is watching, and quitting would be easy. The final march in the Brecon Beacons leaves bodies aching and minds raw, but that's only the beginning. Those who survive the mountains move straight into 14 weeks of relentless training, handling every weapon, mastering demolitions, learning to drive anything with wheels, and drilling tactics that turn instinct into muscle memory. Then comes the jungle, 6 weeks in Belize, Brunei, or Malaysia. 4 men to a patrol, living off whatever they can carry or catch. The heat strips away 10 to 14 pounds from even the toughest candidates. Sleep is a rumor. Leeches and exhaustion are constant. Mistakes mean days without food or worse. The last gate is resistance to interrogation. Candidates are hunted for 3 days, then captured, hooded, and broken down. Interrogators start friendly, then flip to threats and abuse, cycling through every trick in the book. Only 4 answers are allowed: name, rank, service number, date of birth. Everything else, no matter the pressure, gets the same reply: "I'm sorry, but I cannot answer that question." By the end, the few left standing are not just fit, they are ready to vanish, survive, and outlast anyone sent after them. At 7:23 in the evening, a single command cut through the tension: "Go! Go! Go!" Black-clad operators from the SAS red and blue teams burst into action, ropes hissing down the side of the Iranian embassy in London. 6 armed men held 26 hostages inside. For 6 days, the world had watched and waited. Now, every move played out live on television. One operator's rope snagged, leaving him dangling above a window as his teammates smashed their way inside. Explosives were off the table, too risky with a man trapped, so sledgehammers battered through doors. Stun grenades, a weapon invented and perfected by the SAS, filled the rooms with blinding light and thunder, freezing the gunmen where they stood. On the first floor, Police Constable Trevor Locke, taken hostage, wrestled the terrorist leader to the ground as shots rang out. In 17 minutes, 19 hostages were rescued. 5 terrorists were killed. 1 was captured alive. The world saw what only rumors had whispered for 40 years. The SAS could end a siege before the clock ran out. This was no longer a secret. This became the new standard for special forces everywhere. If you want to know how these tactics changed the world, hit subscribe. In 1962, a young American officer named Charlie Beckwith arrived in Hereford to study with 22 SAS. What he found shocked him. The United States had nothing that came close. Beckwith spent a year learning the SAS way. Small teams, relentless selection, total independence, and he returned home determined to copy it, detail for detail. 15 years later, Delta Force was born. The blueprint reached even further. Australia's SASR, New Zealand's SAS, Israel's Sayeret Matkal, Germany's KSK, and Canada's JTF, 2 all borrowed from the same playbook. Even the language stuck. Delta uses squadron and troop instead of company or platoon, a direct lift from Hereford. But for every unit that tried to imitate the SAS, the cost was always personal. At Stirling Lines, the regiment's headquarters, a clock tower stands over the parade square. Every name on its face belongs to an operator who never came back. The money for the tower came from a single day's pay from every man in the regiment. Below the clock, a line from a poem reads, "We are the pilgrims, master. We shall go always a little further." On January 4, 2024, Mike Sadler, the last survivor of those first desert raids, died at 103. The blueprint spread around the world, but the price remained the same: anonymity, sacrifice, and a quiet promise to go further no matter the cost. Today, the SAS model shapes every major special forces unit on Earth, yet their operations remain almost entirely classified. As threats evolve, governments quietly rely on the invisible. The true cost and the true legacy remain largely in the shadows. Some victories are never public, but their impact is undeniable.